Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Premiership Quarter. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Sydney Swans and doing my predictions for them for the 2024 AFL season. I'm going to be doing my prediction for their best 23. I'm going to be talking about a couple of their awards, including their best and fairest and who might finish in the top three. I'm going to be talking about their off-season outlook, so their ins and outs, as well as where I have them finishing in 2024 from my ladder prediction. To start with, I'm going to be talking about their best 23. Now, this is my prediction. This isn't guaranteed what they're going to be doing. I also didn't watch their preseason game against GWS. I haven't watched any preseason game except for the St Kilda one. A lot of these were recorded before, and only 4 of them have been recorded afterwards. So I'm not going to be talking about them aside from the St Kilda one. In terms of the starting key defenders, I think the McCartan choice is obvious. He's probably going to be the only real, genuine, big-bodied key defender they have throughout the entire season. I don't see them converting anyone to be a key defender. He's probably the most important structural piece to their team this season. And if he does go down with an injury, it's going to be really, really hard for them. And I think they'll struggle mightily. But he is a great defender. And I think because of how much he'll have to carry them this season, and if they are a good defensive team, I think he's actually got a really good shot of making the 44-man squad and the All-Australian team with that, because he's an exceptional player and is super important to Sydney. In terms of their other two, it's Joel Hamling. They picked him up from Fremantle in the off-season, and it's not a bad pickup. He didn't really get a lot of games for Fremantle over the last couple of seasons. I do believe he had a bit of injury problems, which is part of that, but Fremantle also had a very settled backline with Alex Pearce, Brennan Cox, and Luke Ryan, so it's kind of understandable. But it's not a bad pickup considering they lost Paddy McCartan due to the concussions. Their third defender is probably Dane Rampy. He's a great leader down back for them, and he just plays his role week in, week out. He doesn't often get beaten. He's more of that medium-sized rather than a proper key defender, which is why I have Joel Hamling in here over someone like a Lewis Melican or Aaron Francis. And they clearly wanted to go get him, but Rampy's a great choice. He's been part of their leadership group for a little while, and he's always a consistent piece for them. In terms of their halfback flankers, I've got Nick Blakey and Jake Lloyd. Blakey obviously made the 44-man squad last year for Sydney, and he really improved on his game. He knew when to make his runs, and he's super quick with them. It's so hard to catch him when he does start, because even though his acceleration is quick, his top speed is so difficult to keep up with, and he just goes and goes and goes all game. And so if you are trying to be defensive on him, it's really difficult. He's also got a great kick, and he can hit the scoreboard as a halfback, which can be really important. And then the other one's Jake Lloyd. He's a very experienced player. He had a bit of a down season last year compared to his performances in 2022, but I think he's slightly past making the All-Australian 44-man squad. That doesn't mean he's replaceable in this team. I think he's really important. He's more of that slow ball mover, and he's able to hit those inside kicks, which for Sydney's ball movement is really important. Their smaller lockdown defender for me is Harry Cunningham. I think his spot's probably up for grabs at the end of the season. He's teetering towards the end of his career rather than the end of his prime. And I think if they do recruit someone, it might be like a Ben Patton as a future role, but they also have someone like Ollie Florent who can there. But they also have someone like Ollie Florent who can potentially take that role up by the end of the season. I do already think Florent's the better player than Cunningham, but I think the role he would provide is too similar to someone like a Jake Lloyd. So the starting team would be with Harry Cunningham instead. In terms of their wingers, I think they've probably got the best winger in the league, Errol Goulden. I think he has a great chance of starting in the midfield if someone like Callum Mills with his shoulder injury isn't able to start round one. But I think fully healthy, he starts on the outside. I think that's where he's at his most damaging. Don't think he has the body to be an in and under midfielder. And without Callum Mills, they might need someone else to do that role. But they've also got Braden Campbell, who I think is a pretty good young player for them. He will probably need to have a breakout season for them to get even better than they were last season, which they can definitely do. And I think he's got a really good left foot. He can kick it from about 60 meters, which is really impressive. And I think he's probably best on the wing rather than off that half back. And he's quite clearly better than Dylan Stevens, which is why they kept him. In terms of their forward line, I think their keys are the three that they had last year when Buddy wasn't playing. It's going to be McLean, it's going to be McDonald, it's going to be a Marty. They can choose between games if they want McLean being the backup ruckman or if they want Amati. I think the better option is McLean because I think Amati's a bit more dangerous up forward, and McLean showed last season that he is able to be very impactful when Hickey wasn't playing as a ruckman. But I think the most dangerous actual key forward in terms of kicking goals for them is going to be Logan McDonald. He was the highest pick out of them, and he's definitely got the most potential. And I just think in order for them to progress, one of them needs to break out, and I do believe it will be him. Now, in terms of their small forwards, I think they've got a great fleet of them. You've obviously got Tom Papley. He's one of the premier small forwards of the comp, one of the best celebrators we've ever seen in the AFL, and he just consistently hits the scoreboard. He's super important for them, and as a pressure and goal-kicking small forward, you struggle to find more than three players better than him. In terms of their more medium-sized small forwards, it's Isaac Heaney and Will Hayward. Heaney's probably the most contentious one because he had a great season in 2022 and then really struggled last year. So for them to be better, he's probably another one that does need to play back to his best. If he's able to kick over a goal a game and play some midfield time, that's exactly what they need from him. And he probably does get close to that. So he's probably going to be really important for them. And then the other one's Will Hayward, who I'm a pretty big fan of. I think he can kick 30 goals in a season. He's a great aerial threat as well. And he's a really hard matchup because if you go with someone smaller, as I said, he can dominate in the air. But if you go someone quicker, someone bigger, he can get them with his speed as well. And he's a pretty good snap goal kicker. So I think he's quite important to this team. In terms of their midfield, they obviously recruited Brodie Grundy. They don't really have anyone else. I don't think Peter Adams is a good player whatsoever. And so I think it's important Grundy stays healthy. He's going to be super important for them. If he gets anywhere close to his best, then he'll propel Sydney to a top 4 spot. The other three are going to be Chad Warner, Callum Mills, and Taylor Adams. They recruited Adams from Collingwood because he wasn't able to edge himself into that team, partly due to injury, but also don't think he necessarily would have been playing. He probably will replace a bit of what Callum Mills has done early on in the season when he might not be playing, but at his best, he's still in their team and he still will make an impact. Chad Warner needs to get back to his 22 best for Sydney to be at their best, and I do think he does that. He had a down year, but he also was injured and it affected his preseason, so a full year of being healthy will be able to get him back to his best. And then Callum Mills, I don't know if he plays round one. I don't think he does, but he's a great leader for them. And even with the pretentious stuff of the injury, which it's just a freak accident, there's not a lot you can do about it. You just sort of got to move on. He is a great player and he's one of the best in and under midfielders and defensive midfielders in the competition. Now, in terms of their bench, it's Ollie Florent. I talked about him already a little bit. I think by the end of the season, he does get over Cunningham, as I mentioned, and I do like him as a player. It's just he was, in my opinion, a bit more of a midfielder when he played, and the fact that he sort of had to go at half back means it's a little bit less of what his absolute potential could have been, but I still like him as a player. James Rowbottom is that fourth midfielder. If Callum Mills doesn't play, he probably becomes that third midfielder. I think with the way he plays, it's more suitable. And you've probably got someone like Angus Sheldrick or James Jordan coming in as that replacement. Justin McInerney is that third winger for me. I think if Errol Goulden has to go on the midfield, he becomes that winger. And I do like him as a bit of an energetic player for them, and he gets up and back along the wings quite well. And then the last is their experienced player. It's Luke Parker. I think he plays more as a forward this year. He'll be a bit more of a defensive forward, and he might play on someone like a Jack Sinclair or a Tom Stewart off of the half-back to shut them down. In terms of their sub, I think it's just Robbie Fox because I think he can come on and play a specific role. I don't think he's a huge impact player when he does start in and play a full game. So I think he's better as a sub, and I don't really see Sydney having anyone else to play that role. In terms of who I've got in their best and fairest and their top three, I think Errol Goulden wins it. I think he's quite comfortably winning it. He's probably easily their best player, not probably, and he'll probably have another Brownlow caliber season. Second, I've got Tom Carton simply because I think he is their most structurally important piece. If he goes down, they're completely shot, and he is amazing for them week in, week out. Third, I've got Chad Warner because I do have him getting back to near his best. He could easily be in the most improved category, but I've gone with a couple of others to shout them out, and I do still really like Chad Warner. In terms of their most goals, I think I'm going with Tom Papley because he is their most experienced forward, and he's also the most guaranteed to kick 50 plus, not 50 plus goals, but guaranteed to get close to that 50 goal mark. I think that's his best, and I think he does get back to that this season. Second, I've got Logan McDonald. I think he will be their second best forward by the end of the season, and he's their number one key forward, in my opinion. And then third, I've got Marty. I think Hayden McLean will be a bit more of a backup ruckman. And then if Brodie Grundy does go down with an injury, which can happen, I think Marty will be able to kick a few more goals in that situation. In terms of my most improved, I think it's Tom McCartan because I don't think the media recognises how good of a player he is and how important he will be for Sydney this season. Second, I've got Braden Campbell. I think he locks down that wing spot. He's a really great player and he really will just get better in terms of improvement. And then third, I've got Brodie Grundy. I didn't like how he played last year. I didn't really like how he fit into the team at all. If you want to play two ruckmen, you need one of them to be a key forward. You had Paddy Ryder and Rowan Marshall. Rowan Marshall was a forward, which is why it worked so well. And Paddy Ryder was able to impact in the forward line. He kicked goals at vital moments, which is why I also don't like Darcy and Jackson. It's just not going to work if one of them can't impact up forward. Darcy's best was as a ruckman. We've seen that before in 2022. Jackson's best was arguably in that grand final when he got put in the middle, and his best last season was when Darcy wasn't playing in the back half. It just doesn't work if one of them can't impact up forward, and so I think Grundy gets back to his best. In terms of their ins and outs from the off-season, I think they did probably the best in the trade period, getting in Taylor Adams and Brodie Grundy for not too much value. I like the picks that they also selected. I think Will Green will be really important for them if Brodie Grundy isn't able to stay healthy past this season or the next season. He'll develop really well. And I also think Paddy Snell will be a good pickup in the future as well as Caden Cleary. They also picked up James Jordan in free agency along with Hamling, who I've talked about. Jordan will probably start in the team without Mills, but I don't think he'll get over someone like Rowbottom. I don't think he's better than him, and Rowbottom's a much better tackler and defensive midfielder. So I think that works when you've got Warner and Goulden being able to be those explosive midfielders. In terms of who they lost, it was mainly Hickey, McCartan, and Franklin, and they all retired. And then they lost Dylan Stevens as their only really important piece, but he wasn't that important. As I said earlier, Braden Campbell, in my opinion, is better than them. So I think it was a really good off-season. They were the winners of the trade period with the impact that Adams and Grundy might have. In terms of where I have Sydney finishing, I have them going back into the top four like 2022. I think they've got the talent for it. I think they've got the coach for it. And I think they've got the game style for it. They had a great back half of last season to get into the 8, and it was a contentious thing with Adelaide. But I still think they probably deserve to make it anyway. I think they played great football in the back half of the season. I think at their absolute best is probably where I have them finishing. I don't think they can finish in the top 2. They'll probably push for third, but I don't have them getting there. But I think they can also potentially slip as low as 9th. But I do have them like a 95% chance of making finals because they've shown it works. They've shown even during a bad season, they can make finals, and they almost beat a prelim team in week 1. So that's also a team that pushed the runner-ups up at their home ground and got a 5-goal lead. So I think Sydney have a better season. I think they get back to their 2022 best, and I think they'll have a real impact in finals as well. So that's my thoughts on Sydney. If you have any others, leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this type of content, there's going to be a lot more before the season starts. And like the video if you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.